Hello, and welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your coach, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that you have more power than you think you do. And we also believe that as you learn how to choose your feelings, you also learn to choose hope. One thing that I'm really excited about that's going to take place in just a couple of days is I'm offering a live podcast call with you, okay? With my listeners, especially those who have been listening from episode 1, just because there might be overlapping questions and things that we've already addressed. But heaven knows that we all need to hear things a couple of times. And so if you haven't listened from the beginning, join us anyway. I just always have the most juicy conversations when I'm talking to someone about the podcast outside of the podcast. And I always think, gosh, I wish my listeners could hear this because they probably have similar questions or, things like that. Let me tell you a little bit about what it's going to look like. We're going to open up a Zoom call and we'll all be there together. And I will read one of the entries from my journal and I'll give a little bit of backstory and we'll break it down just a little bit. And then I want to leave majority of the time for you to ask me questions, either about the story or about things that you really want to get clear on, things, maybe some of the methods that we've talked about, or share anything that's in your heart. So that will be there for you. I'm going to put a link in the show notes below if you want to join us on this call. And if you have a burning question, great. And if you don't, and you just want to listen and be on the call, then you're welcome to do that as well. So I'll put a link in the show notes. You can click on that and that will take you to a survey so that we can choose between 3 days and figure out what call will work for most people. So that's what we're going to do. I'm really, really excited and I genuinely hope that it's something that serves you and helps me love you and helps me get to know you better as well as my audience. And I'm just really grateful for the people who come and go on this journey and step into this space with quite a bit of bravery because we're talking about, your own mindset. So I really love it. Know that it's a safe place. And if anything gets brought up that we don't want aired, we don't have to air it. Okay. That's how that works. We can edit it. So join us, click in the link below. I'm really looking forward to seeing your faces. Now that has been announced and I'm super pumped for that, let's move on and just talk for a minute to my new listeners. Anyone who is new to this podcast, this is such a fulfilling journey, okay? Because we started from the very beginning of when I got pregnant, when I was 15 years old, and we're traveling through a journey in reading my journal. This is the first season of the podcast where we really break down mindset and some things that I was going through and things that we learn together as we go on the path. So it's a really cool journey. If you haven't listened from, episode number 1, I invite you to go back to listen to it in chronological order if you feel called to do so. If not, and you want to join us for this episode, then we're happy that you're here. Let's jump in. I'm so excited for today's podcast. It's a little heavy. I'm not going to lie. This episode has a little bit of a higher rating, than the other episodes, but I do bleep out swears, okay? But the content is a little bit heavier. It might not be the best for young children to hear in the background. So I'm just giving you that little bit of a heads up. There's some stuff that is really kind of coming out right now. So that's just a little disclaimer before we get started. The people in this podcast are all very self-explanatory. Jesse is my husband at the time and my sister Shelly. You probably know that by now. And then everybody else that's mentioned is very understandable. So let's dive in. November 11th, 1994. I'm so upset today. I went to take Jesse a message before school and found him sleeping next to this girl that was supposedly one of Corey's friends that was staying there. Jesse's arms were wrapped around her and they were all comfy. What a bleep. Now he's denying it. Bleep, I'm so pissed. Oh, bleep, what the hell do I do? I will never trust him again. This chick is only 13 years old. He has no feelings. He thinks he can just walk around and stick his thing in anything he wants and wash it off. I want a bleep divorce. November 30th, 1994. Yesterday, I moved to Cedar, my mom's. I was talking with my friend, Trisha, and she told me a rumor. She'd heard that Shelley, my own sister, had walked in on Jesse and JC while they were in bed together while we were married. I asked Shelley about it today, and she said it was true. She didn't tell me because she didn't want me to lose Taylor, and Jesse had threatened her and also told her that he told me and that he would never do it again. I'm shaking. I want a divorce. I have so much hate for this man. It is unbelievable. What do I do? He always told me he never had. Now I know of at least one while we were married. And I know of plenty more while we were just seeing each other. He's such a bleep liar. I don't even know half of what he's ever done behind my back. He always used to lie and tell me he wasn't high when he was. And I really wonder what I don't know about. And wonder what he's doing right this minute in Ogden, probably bleeping the bleep out of someone he met a couple of hours ago. And it makes me absolutely sick to think about how he treated me so bad, how he bleeped on me and walked all over me. And I was so naive. I believed him. I only wonder how I'd do it right now if he was in distance. Like in town, I'd probably go bleep house crazy. And even right now, I'm breaking down and I'm so stressed. I'm only here for Taylor. Okay. So many things to break down, to give you the backstory on, and to talk about. This is an incredible amount of information that's happening all at once. And if you notice, my journal writing is becoming more sporadic. I think that the more stressed I was, I wrote 2 times in October, 2 times in November. The more stressed I was, the more I was only writing down obviously these big events and just kind of using my journal as a place to vent. Okay. I don't even know where to start. Okay. I feel like telling you some things that have come up, that are memories that are interwoven in this part of the story. So, I think some of them are really good to help us be able to see the character of what it looks like. Like, for example, when I walked in on him with this girl. And if you notice in the very next entry that I read, I'm not claiming that he cheated on me with her when it was right before my face. I mean, hello, what was he doing? It was morning and I walked in and his arms were wrapped around her. And I think he talked to me so much in those moments to convince me that it wasn't what it looked like. This isn't what it looks like. Corey was there, okay? And this is my memory.
And I know this is a bad memory. This is just what's in my memory, okay? So I walk in and I go into the room where Jesse normally sleeps. And on the bed is this girl, and then Jesse, and then Corey. And they're all sleeping in the bed. And I remember he told me, like, during the night, like, things got moved around or whatever. It wasn't what it looked like. And he talked to me, and he talked to me, and he talked to me. Okay. And then he gaslit me. He told me that I had been cheating on him with Corey. And luckily my mind was stable enough to know that he was blowing absolute smoke. But I'm telling you that when somebody tries to convince you of something that you didn't do, it's probably because they were doing the very thing that they're trying to convince you that you were doing. Okay, trying to like make you look just as guilty so that they aren't guilty. Or that if they were caught guilty, then you were both guilty, or whatever the case. But I had never even been in a compromising situation ever. And I knew that in my mind he was feeding me a line, but I didn't know enough to like break it all down. I didn't know enough to not clearly believe him that nothing fishy had happened with this girl. I mean, please. It's like in the moment, you know, I remember leaving that circumstance. I remember leaving that house. I remember it was like snowy. I think there was ice, and I kind of had like a hard time kind of getting out of the driveway. I remember feeling so furious. I remember going to the school that I loved, and I remember being able to just honestly fall into my friend's arms there. And then later, you know, he convinces me it's not what it looks like. And I'm obviously even writing it in my journal. She was a young girl, which is like an entirely different conversation, but it's worth really making sure that it's known. It is known. She was 13 freaking years old. You know? I mean, just to be fair, I don't know why or how I knew that in my journal. I don't know why. But she was young. Okay, so that's just disclaimer. And I can remember as I'm going through this memory, I had a memory pop up that I thought was very interesting. And I don't know at what point this memory falls in the story. But I remember being at Tanya and Derek's. It was at least at this point or previous, okay? It happened at this point in the story. And I remember there was a crazy night of like wind, and I remember him waking me up a lot in the night and kind of trying to scare me that someone was outside, like that someone was going to come and get me. Okay, so this is just a side note. That didn't happen like all the time, but that's an awful memory that I've obviously like buried somewhere that's come up for me. And another memory was this event where I was going up the mountain with my young adult group from school. It was a school event. We were loading a bus. We were going to a cabin that was owned by like the school district or something. It was just a really, really incredible event that I had been looking forward to. And it would have happened between my last entry, which was October 17th, and before November 11th. So sometime in between there is when this happened. And I remember making plans. Jesse was he wanted to take Taylor. You know, I could take her with me. A lot of the moms were taking their babies with them. It was just going to be one big, huge slumber party and a really fun opportunity to bond with our friends, with our teachers, to go on nature walks, just to kind of, you know, get away and to learn, to grow, just to enjoy ourselves for a half of a second, right? And the school was providing that for us mothers. So, so cool. Well, Jesse knew about it, and he said that he wanted to take Taylor. You know, overnight, he wanted to take her, and while I went up and did this event. And so I'm like, okay, you know, he's her dad, of course, that's okay. And the morning of, the plan was that he would pick me up, and then he would drop me off at school, and then Taylor would stay with him. And that way I didn't have to leave, you know, my sister's car at the school and, you know, all this other rigmarole. And so that morning came, and we were all packed, ready to go. And I remember calling him over and over and no answer. And I remember it kind of getting down to the wire, the last minute. And I ran downstairs and threw all of Taylor's like winter clothes in the bag that I had packed, because we were going up the mountain. It was going to be colder. And so I threw all of, you know, coats and whatever she needed, and just was like, okay, I'm just going to take her with me. And so I jump in the car, head to school, get on the bus, you know, of course, tell my friends, I can't believe it. He didn't show up, blah, blah, blah. Not a big deal. They have their kids too. It's no big deal. And the bus had been put in gear and was starting to pull away, and he pulls in front of the bus. So embarrassing. Comes on the bus and is like, excuse me, I just need to get my daughter, da, da, da. You know, goes and like walks down the aisle, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, her bags are, and I'm like having to dig through bags to find hers, and it was just a mess. And then he took her for the night, and I remember somehow getting, I don't know if I called to check on her that night, or if I got a call from someone. There's still a part of my memory that's blocked. Something happened that night, and I know it had to do with maybe him getting high. I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember that there was an incident that I was so worried about that Jane almost drove me down the mountain until we figured out that it had been resolved. You know, and so all of this leading up to, okay, I'm starting to see reality. I'm starting to recognize reality. And that's a huge part of what we're going to talk about today. Before we go there, I'm going to tell you two things. Two things that were extremely positive during this period of time. One of them was that Jesse's mom sent me money specifically for pictures. She knew like that I would love that. And, you know, she sent me more than I needed, which was awesome. So I think the pictures cost, like, in my mind, they cost like $30, and she sent me $100. I don't even know why that's a detail in my mind, but probably because I was so aware of like what I had to work with during that period of time. But those pictures are, again, pictures that I treasure because they were professionally taken in a time where our cameras did not do reality justice. And I will, again, try to post some of those pictures in the Facebook group. So if you want to see those, you can go check out the Mindset Check Facebook group, and I'll post them there this week. But those pictures are absolute treasures. Those are the ones, I have one of them that I'm looking at right now, of my daughter. Just, it's like the most angelic. You know, you be the judge. You be the judge. But that was an absolute positive that had come out of this little period of time. And then another thing that was so beautiful was my dad forever saying that one of the very best days of his life was the day that he came to pick us up to move us home. You know, my dad drove an Astro van up to my, you know, drove our whole family up to be with my mom's family in Salt Lake for Thanksgiving. And that was the plan. The plan was my block of school had ended. They were going to come up for Thanksgiving. They were going to pick me up and all my stuff, and we were going to load up the van and try to load everybody else in the van too. And I just, I have this picture of Dad, how are you going to drive? You can't even see out your rear view mirror. And he's like, I got this. Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. I got this. And yeah, that's a beautiful memory. And, having a very safe place to fall in the middle of all this was just saving grace for me. My sister, Shelly. So the very next day after I had moved home, and I was talking with my friend, and then later that day, I remember Shelly and I we went for a drive that was actually kind of far away because we went to Aunt Iris. If you remember from a previous episode, we went to see Aunt Iris for one of Taylor's appointments, and her clinic was like 20, 30 minutes maybe from where we were at. And I remember getting back on the freeway and just saying, like, I was kind of like in disbelief. I remember being like, what? Shelly, guess what? Guess what Trisha told me? She told me that, like, you walked in on Jesse and this other chick. And I was like, yeah, can you even believe that? And I remember it being like dead silent for a minute. And my sister just said, Mish, it's true. It's true. But then she told me all of the reasons why, we never talked about it. She told me that
Jesse had threatened her,
and that she was so fearful because of whatever the threat was that I was going to lose the baby. Like, I've talked to her later about it in life, right? I've talked to her about it recently. And it's just like this. He scared her to keep his secret. He scared her into not being able to tell, which is such a tactic, right? And then he also told her that he told me, and that we worked it out. But don't bring it up again because it'll just upset her. Hello. Hello. The thing is I'm just going to say that when we are naive, when we don't have a reason to go through life distrusting people, generally we do trust them. And it's really hard to find a balance between the two of those things. Between going through life questioning everyone and everything, and going through life trusting everyone and everything. And ultimately, you just have to pay attention to that feelings that are in your gut, And I think age definitely brings you a lot inside of that. And I will say that being able to clearly see how if you're older, and that would have been very clear for you to see, or if you're younger and you're questioning, would that have been clear for me to see? My best advice to you is to ask someone else outside of the equation, and especially someone who's older. If you feel like you can't ask them, if you feel like you can't ask someone that you trust, it's probably true. It's probably true. But we've seen that all along the way, right? We've seen the red flags and me hesitating to see the reality, me hesitating because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to see it. And there's something called radical acceptance. This is Marsha Linehan. She said the path out of hell is through misery. By refusing to accept the misery that's part of climbing through hell, you fall back into hell. Does that make sense? The idea is that if you continue to go through it with a blindfold on, you're going to just stay in the mess. You're going to stay there. You have to get brave. You have to be willing to take that blindfold off and to look at what reality is and to accept it before you can move forward, before you can do something about it. I love the quote from Winston Churchill that says, if you're going through hell, keep going. If you're going through hell, keep going. Like, right? Keep climbing out of the pit. You have to keep going through it to be able to move away from it. Sweeping it under the rug, covering it up, pretending it doesn't exist is only going to exacerbate the problem. It's only going to make it bigger. But we have such a tendency to like not want to see it, to not want to see the truth because of what the truth says. What the truth says about us, the reality of our life, you know, the fear of what is ahead for us if this is true. So it's really hard sometimes to embrace reality. But I am here to tell you that when you get on the other side, it is worth that journey. It is worth going through it. It's worth continually climbing and having things being thrown in your face, because you're going to see what I'm telling you and what I just read you is not the end. Okay, that's not all that happened. It's the beginning of the awakening. And because I was willing to start seeing it, because I started talking about it, because a trusted friend said she heard this rumor, and then I was able to bring that up to my sister. And my sister Shelly and I were so close that it literally was like, oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what someone said about like you and us, like that you would ever keep something like that from me. That's how close we were. Do you see that? And for her intent was never to hurt me. Her intent was the opposite. She so fiercely wanted me to be in a good place that she believed Jesse's threats. But it took me saying something so she could say, it's true. That part, what you're talking about, is true. So here's a quote that, man, hold on to it and grab it. And I don't know if I'm saying the name right. I think it's Kenji Mayawaza. Kenji Mayawaza. How about that? It says, we must embrace pain and burn it as fuel for our journey. Ugh, let that fire light underneath you. Let it propel you. Let it be what helps lift you. And believe that you will find the resilience that you need to navigate forward. That yes, it's uncertain, but rather than sit in whatever it is you're sitting in, you know, because it might not be about relationships. It might be about the way that you view money and scarcity, okay? It could be about a relationship that you have continually said is just fine, but that actually needs to be brought out into the light to heal, to make it better. There's so many different things that everybody that's listening could be sitting in, okay, that you could be sitting in. And being able to look at the reality with empathy in your heart, understanding the background of how it came to be, you know, helps you so much in the acceptance of what is. Because once you accept it, you can do something with it. You can move forward. You can grow. You can actually bring yourself into a different place, into a different state. But seeing it is the first step. You know, my favorite thing to say about trials is that I believe that our belief about our trials and our response to them is the number one predictor of how we will go through them. And how we go through our trials is what determines our life story. So take a minute and ask yourself what your relationship is to your trials. Do you actually believe that they can do something for you, that they can make you into a better person? Because if you do, it becomes that much easier to grab on to the reality when it's not favorable. When the reality of what you're sitting in is not what you hope. By being able to look at it, you get to create what you do want. And I want to talk to you about how we heal how we go through something so hard, or maybe like something blows up at our feet, and how do we shift from feeling so yucky and sitting in that gross place into a state where we do believe in our future, where we do believe that we can bring something else different into our life. And I want to start by talking about how dang impressionable we are. And this is something that I've always really loved for a long time, is just the visual of how, have you ever fallen asleep on something, whether it was an object or maybe it was something like a textile that had a little bit more of a pattern in it. And when you wake up, that your face has the pattern of whatever it was that you fell asleep on. Or for the ladies, if you have ever crossed your legs, then you can see the red spots when you uncross. And what's really cool is if you take a penny, or a quarter, and you put it between your legs when you cross them, or if you put it underneath your elbow and you lean onto a desk, you only have to stay there for a few minutes before you pull back and you look at your skin in that spot and you see this imprint of what you were leaning against. And I love to bring that forward as a visual to be able to see how impressionable we are. Because so many times when bad things happen, we can get stuck in this negativity and we're not able to get out because we're continually reinforcing this negativity. And then when we're continually reinforcing that, and then our body releases hormones that we become addicted to, because our body becomes addicted to those negative emotions, right? So it becomes a cycle, and what we have to do is we have to realize that even though we see reality, we have the opportunity to create something different. We have the opportunity to choose our feelings and to move forward. And it's not about discrediting our pain. It's not about ignoring it. Okay? It's about, we have to stay inside of that long enough to process it and to know that we're going to move forward. That we are going to rely on positive emotions when we need them the most. That hard times do present us with these very deep, yucky, muddy feelings, okay, that feel like we're going over hurdles or climbing over pits. Napoleon Hill said, every adversity has the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. And so the harder that you're hurting, the more that you're going through, is showing you have access to something even greater to create something more in the future, something better. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that. Because here's the big deal, okay? The big deal is that you have to heal yourself in order to attract something different in your life. Okay, whether that's a relationship, whether it's like a, sort of a significant other relationship, whether that's a relationship or whether that's situations that you want to come into your life, that you want to be different. We have to heal ourselves and the emotions and the feelings that we're feeling all the time to be able to attract something different. I think it's Gabby Bernstein that says, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So we have to teach ourselves to choose something different. So in the face of learning about adversity, I want to drop into with you today and talk about choosing our feelings. And again, remember, the correlation between the two is recognizing and embracing the absolute parts of what's in front of you that you don't like, and being able to see that during the moments, even when you're going through that you can control, that you are choosing to try to your very best to align yourself with feelings that do feel good to you, so that you can teach yourself that there's a possibility for something different, for something more. So I have a printable, and I will make sure that I email it to you if you're on my email list, or if you are not, I'll leave a link in the show notes, and you can get this list of all of the things, my top 7 tips to help you choose your feelings. Because you have the power to teach your brain how to feel. It doesn't mean, when I'm sitting there talking to Shelly and I realize the truth of it, that I'm not allowed to feel those feelings of disgust, of dismay, of disheartenment, right? All of these like sad feelings. We have to feel those. We cannot run from those. But in the midst of feeling yucky, we have to counterbalance it. So stay in it, and the next day wake up and choose how to choose something good. Or maybe it's 2 days later or 3 days later, whenever it is that you've been able to, process the yuck, and then you want to move to something different. It's okay to do that. You need to know that it's okay to do that. It doesn't mean that you're betraying your feelings. It means that you want to attract something different. So number 1, this is something that we've gone over if you follow me on Facebook. It's making a list of what you have proof of. So keeping a list of the things that you have proof of, things that people have said to you that are positive attributes or facts about you. And you keep a private list of these things when somebody compliments you or when a fact is evident about you. Okay? Like, you did well on a certain test or you excelled at something. That's a fact, right? Or things that people have said about you and complimented you about. So it's not really up to you to decide whether or not the things that they say to you are true. What's up for you to decide is, did they say them in a genuine way, and are they authentic? And if you believe that they were, then that is something that goes on your list of proof. So something on mine is that my friend Michelle believes that I'm a good writer. And the only reason that means something to me is because Michelle is a reader, and she is very educated. And I know that if she's going to read something that I write and say that I'm a good writer, her arena for being able to say that, I respect that. Or Megan, my fitness coach, says that I bring good energy into the room and that I'm a hard worker. That means something to me. Maria says she likes to practice yoga next to me. Jan thinks I'm a good teacher. Maybe someone in your life thinks you give good advice. Maybe you're really good at taking care of someone or something in your life. So we write these things down and we make a list. Because sometimes when we're feeling so crappy and the world has beat us up, we have to be able to rely on what we have proof of in our life. And it happens to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're going through what my 15-year-old self was going through. The world beats us up every day. And we have to choose what we're going to believe, because what we focus on grows. Number 2 is to look at your good life. So look through your pictures, your notes that have been written to you, or any journal entries that you've recorded about the good in your life. Remind yourself of good memories and good relationships and good feelings that you've felt. Those are so important to check in and to feel what looking at your good life helps you to feel. Again, what we're doing here is choosing your feelings. Number 3, something that you can do is participate in group membership. Right? You can volunteer in places where you feel like you make a difference, or you can just show up in those places, like, volunteering in your kids' classroom. You can make a difference in your family, your friends, in those communities. There's Facebook groups of all kinds. We have the Mindset Check Facebook group. You can show up in there and be a contributor. Share some things that you have seen that you love that could lift somebody else. The feeling of giving back to someone helps you understand how needed and appreciated you are, and that you have the ability to make a difference from a group perspective. You matter. checking into that and proving that to yourself is so important. Number 4 on the list of choosing your feelings is sit in feelings that trump others. And we've talked about this before. We've talked about how when we have feelings that are high on the vibrational scale, that you cannot feel those feelings at the same time as feeling negative feelings. So in other words, you cannot feel gratitude and anxiety at the same time. You can't feel love and feel hate. And one of my favorite games with sitting in feelings that trump others is that when I feel low, I take an inventory of the last 24 hours and I say, what are 3 things that have happened in the last 24 hours that are the most beautiful? And then I name things that I've seen or witnessed that are absolutely beautiful. Okay, they might be normal things, but that's exactly what we need to get to, is being able to look at the things that are normal in our life that help us check into feelings of gratitude, things that are beautiful, things that we love. And so you can do it with things you're grateful for, things that you've seen that are beautiful, whatever it is that you want to help you kind of drop into those feelings. But that is something that's an experience you can give yourself that teaches you to see these things, these feelings, and to actually feel them. When you do that exercise, for the next 24 hours, you then see things that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. It's beautiful. I vividly remember doing that exercise and then seeing, in the next 24 hours, seeing this guy on a bike pulling a person in a wheelchair, okay, just to get them out and to show them the world. It was so endearing. And sometimes we don't notice those things. We don't notice those things because we're so absorbed in our own world. So teaching ourselves to see them. Number 5 on the list of choosing your feelings is serving others. When we help other people, it helps us to put our problems into perspective. Okay, and to feel good and to make a difference in the life of someone else. And yes, that's a little bit selfish. That's a selfish reason to serve others. But let's just stop right there and be honest. That's okay, just so you know. That's okay to say, I got to get out of my world and check in with someone else and help someone else. Service doesn't always have to be a selfless thing. It can be a selfish thing. And you're very wise when it becomes a selfish thing, because it doesn't mean that you're not helping someone. It just means that you get to help 2 people. Number 6 is music. And this morning, I'm not going to lie, like I have been feeling really amazing. And today, just some things came up for me, like the little thoughts. You know them because you feel them too. Am I really making a difference? Is this really going to, is this podcast really going to make a difference for someone or whatever? I start to feel these things, start to have these like questionable things. And I'm like, you know what? Why am I checking into those feelings? And so I put in one of my awesome playlists and I went and worked out. And it just like rechecked me in. And I was like, no, I'm doing this. I am doing this. I'm here. I'm showing up for others. And I'm going to do what I can to help. I'm going to do what I can. And I'm going to offer what I have and my story. I'm going to be transparent. And I'm going to sit in this space. And then I was able to like have all of those feelings come because I was choosing to check into a good feeling through music. Isn't it amazing? We have to start recognizing that we bring feelings into our life. We have to start recognizing that we're teaching ourselves to have a default way of functioning. Number 7 on the list is listen to voices that lift and inspire. Sometimes what's going on inside of our own mind and our self-talk is not the most kind thing for us. And we have to check into a better vibration. We just do. We need the power that can come from someone else's words when they tell us the way that something works or something that, will motivate us, something that will help us, that's an inspiring message that helps lift us to higher ground. We have to check into sometimes knowing that coming out of misery is a climb. It's not going to be easy. We have to check into ideas and other voices to get out of our own head. And so make sure that you have a list of motivational speakers or a good friend that always makes you laugh every time you call them, inspiring messages, or even just a funny comedian that you can laugh at. Check into somebody else's voice that can lift you and inspire you. I love in episode 37 how we talked about stress, right? And we talked about the greatest weapon that we have against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Teaching ourselves to choose these feelings helps pull us out of lower level feelings and vibrations, okay? It helps pull us out of stress. It helps pull us out of despair or whatever it is that's going on in our life. Because if we don't learn how to heal from it, then we continually attract again what we know. We have to teach ourselves something different. We are so impressionable. Keep in mind that quarter and try to do something today that puts that impression into your skin so that you can reaffirm how impressionable you are and how every single action that you make actually helps you to become better if you're choosing wisely. Marshall Silver said, "You choose how to feel and act every moment of every day. The moment you accept this responsibility completely, you gain total control over your life. Don't allow the things that happen to you in life choose your feelings for you. Take responsibility and recognize that you have complete power over your future when you choose to become what you want to attract. We have to heal to move forward. Bad things are going to happen, but we don't have to stay there. You have to believe that you're capable of creating whatever it is that you want in life. And it's that easy. Start by doing what you know to do and make sure that you're getting a healthy balance of emotions and vibrations and that you're actually feeling the feelings, that you're dropping in and recognizing how a song makes you feel or how someone's voice makes you feel, and feel what that feels like in your chest. And recognize that it feels good and that you're teaching yourself to feel something or to default in the future to those feelings. If you're getting a healthy balance of those emotions, those vibrations, that the good outweigh the bad, in that you realize your power. And because our stories help others, we wanted to ask you to share yours. Last week I had some incredible news from one of our listeners named Lori. Holy cow, I found your podcast and all I can say is it could not have come to me in a more divinely inspired time. I had to stop social media for my mental health because things were so ugly and I was drowning with working in the medical field during a pandemic. I've been working my way through trauma, an MS diagnosis, loss of both of my parents and brother, and my siblings and I haven't spoken since my mom died. I was led to your podcast, and I could not stop listening. You have a gift. Instead of numbing myself to Netflix and binge watching an unimportant show during the week while my son is gone with his dad, which is normally incredibly difficult for me for a number of reasons. Listening to your voice in all its wisdom not only has such a calming effect, but it truly does give me hope, makes me smile, cry, and absolutely does change my perspective. I type this with tears because I absolutely believe in my soul this was brought to me in this time to help me heal my broken brain, heart, and soul. Lori, I cannot thank you enough for letting me know how this podcast is affecting you and for sharing
so vulnerable with us. That means so much to me. Please, if you also have any insights, breakthroughs, or anything that have helped you move through your day because of the things that we talk about on this podcast, I would love it if you would share. Send your thoughts in an email to hello@myfriendmisha.com or DM me on Instagram at myfriendmisha. That's MESHA. And we'll take a minute on one of our upcoming podcasts to share your story with our other listeners. Also, this podcast can grow with your help. If you think this info is helpful, then I would love it if you share it with someone and leave us a review. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to get the mindset and encouragement that can help you get through your day. And hey, thank you so much for letting me walk through a small part of your journey with you today. Remember that we are so impressionable. When you choose how you feel, you teach your brain what to default to. You can teach yourself to feel good automatically, and you have access to that no matter what you have gone through. You have more power than you think you do. Until next time, my friend.